Hey guys, so today I want to show you how to write a commercial contract. Okay. So if you've been asking yourself, am I allowed to do commercial deals? The answer is yes. You can do a commercial deal with the license you have, the same one you use to do residential. So if you get a commercial deal, uh, you know, feel free to work that deal or get some help on working that deal. I want to show you how to do the simple contract. There is a simple contract in Transaction Desk that you can use for a commercial deal. One thing I will tell you is if it happens to be that you land some major deals such as a shopping center or shopping mall or something that is kind of a little bit bigger and outside traditional, single office building or whatever the case may be, or a single industrial property, you might actually want to have a lawyer involved for that buyer that will write a specific contract, because there are just certain things about, bigger properties, more complex properties that might need to involve a lawyer. And that's the case, no problem. You just come to myself or Gil and we will refer you a great real estate lawyer. But besides that, you guys can write contracts right now on apartment complexes, on offices, industrial, with just this simple contract I'm about to show you. So first things first, you go into your tools. Okay. So dashboard.stellarmls.com is where you have all your real estate tools. You're going to be opening up, obviously MLS if the property is listed on the MLS. The thing with commercial is a lot of times it's not listed on the MLS because a lot of strictly commercial agents don't have access to the MLS. They're not part of the board. So they list it in other places. So if that's the case, I'm going to show you how to do this manually. Okay. So you're going to open up your IMAP and then your transaction desk, which I've already have opened up here. So number one is we are going to look for the property that you're doing, right? So I'm going to look up a property that Gil and I are owners of here in Paramore. So it's in Orange County, and I just go in here and I just put 1011 West Central. I don't get too specific with the names. I pull that up, and it's going to give me the public record for this property. It's going to tell me everything I need to know about this property. And the thing that I really want to get here in order to write the contract is this PID. That's a property ID, or what they call a tax ID. That's going to help me create my transaction in Transaction Desk, because it will be able to pull all the information for the property. So I don't have to write the address or the legal description and things like that. So I pulled that number up. Okay. I go into my Transaction Desk. Okay. I'm going to start a new transaction. So I'm just going to call this sample 1011 Central. Okay. So you don't necessarily have to put a template here. I have created several templates for different types of things. Don't worry about the template for now. What type? This is going to be a commercial sale. So it's not a commercial listing, commercial sale. I'm on the buyer's side. I'm writing the contract. Okay. And this is important right here. This is why I got the property ID, is I'm going to put the selected source as a realist, which is another property records public records application that's in your toolbox. I just like IMAP better, but let's just use realist for this because that's what it'll pick up. Okay, so I put realist. Okay, and then it's going to ask me what county. I'm in the right county. It's in Orange, and then I'm going to paste that property description I just copied. Here's something that you have to know. You have to have the dashes where the spaces are. So when I get it off of IMAP, unfortunately, it doesn't give me the dashes. So I'm just going to go in here and manually put in the dashes, because it will not recognize this property ID without the dashes. Okay. So here you go. Here you go. Okay, great. And I am the selling agent, and I create this transaction. Okay. So it's creating the transaction. It's pulling all the information in from that public records. Look, it's already pulled in the legal description, everything that I need to write this contract. The one thing that on any contract you write in Transaction Desk, the first thing I do is I go to contacts and I make sure that I have every contact needed. In this particular case, it automatically imported the seller, obviously has me as the selling agent. We have the selling brokerage, but we will want to add obviously our buyer into it. And the way you do that is just to add, create a new transaction contact, and then go in here and put buyer, and then fill out all the information there. I won't go through that now because I just want to show you the contract. So now let's assume we got all our contacts in there. Now we're going to go into forms. Okay. And in forms, I'm going to look up the commercial contract. So this cool little search tool right here, I'll just put in commercial. Okay. Search. and it's going to give me everything in the, actually take that back, not in this search. This is searching the forms I already got. So add, you're going to add a form. So press add. Okay. And up here in this search box is the one you want, right? Commercial. Bam. There's the commercial contract. So when I put that, it came up with anything that had commercial in it. This is the one I want, commercial contract. Super simple. And you'll see that this contract is very similar to the residential one, which is awesome. It just has some different terms. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and add that. And I'm going to go into the contract and show you how to fill this out. Okay. So number one is, if you would have put the contacts like I told you, your buyer should be in here. Okay. But right now it's blank, no problems, but great. It imported who the seller was, which in this particular case, we probably can move this to LLC. It sometimes gets it backwards. So it's really Winter Springs Investments LLC. Great. So make sure you get all your stuff correct. Your contract looks great. Look, it already has the address, the legal description. Fantastic. Okay. So obviously here, just like any contract, we're going to put the purchase price. So I'll put 4 million here. Okay. Fantastic. Okay. And then this is where we put our deposit, just like you would on a residential contract. So we're going to find out who the seller of the property is using to close this. Sometimes it's an attorney's office. Sometimes it's a title company. Just so you know, there's no real difference, right? Celebration Title Group does commercial closings too. Matter of fact, they'd welcome them. So, if they don't have somebody who they're using specifically, feel free to put Celebration Title Group in there and close it with Celebration. Okay. So I get this question a lot. What's the amount of the deposit? Well, it kind of depends, right? So just like residential, are you in a competitive situation? How serious is your buyer? Do they really want this property? Obviously the bigger the deposit amount, the more it shows that, you've got the money, that you're serious about this thing, right? On a $4 million property, I got to believe that you'd want to put at least 50 grand as a deposit, right? If you're going to buy something for 4 million, I feel like you got to show them that you got 50. Now, if the seller's kind of desperate, or, whatever the case may be, and they haven't had contracts and, you think you can get away with it, you can try 25, but probably not anything lower than 25. And on something like 4 million, it wouldn't be weird to put down $100,000 on a deposit, right? It would just all depend. You'll talk to your buyer about it and you'll look at the situation. But in this particular case, I'm going to see if I can get away with $50,000 as a deposit. Okay. So I'm going to put that there. Okay. And obviously you want to fill in all the information for the title company or the lawyer's office who's closing this. Okay. So I want to go through these parts. So in this section here, it's talking about additional deposits. So many times in commercial deals, what will happen is when you get past your inspection period, which we'll go over in a second, it's called the due diligence period. Sometimes what we'll do is we'll say, hey, we'll put $50,000 deposit down, but after we pass inspection, we're going to put another $25,000 deposit, an additional deposit. This is pretty common in commercial. So in a case where, let's say you were like, you told your client, hey, I think you should put $100,000 deposit. And they're like, I don't know how I feel about that. Well, you might say to them, well, how about we put 50,000, and then after the end of the inspection period or due diligence period, we're going to go ahead and put another 50,000. Okay. So that protects your buyer a little bit more, but I just wanted to let you know about this section because it is an important section, right? So you'll see it has a couple of choices here. Like if you check this one, 3 days after the due diligence period ends, you'll put the additional deposit. Or if you check this one, it's whatever days after the effective date of the contract, right? So once again, not a section you have to use. I'm just letting you know that it's there. So let's just keep it simple right now. In this particular case, just like the residential contract, if you're getting financing, you can go ahead and put the dollar amount or the percentage, right? If I put 80, okay, on this commercial contract, it does not let me put the percentage. So you would want to put your actual dollar amount. So let's say I was financing 2 million, right? Well, you see, it automatically calculates the amount to close down here. Okay. So if it's cash, obviously we don't put anything in there, right? So moving on, just like a residential contract, you're going to have a time for acceptance. You can give them a few days, you can give them until tomorrow. Commercial deals don't tend to happen. Everything doesn't move as fast really as residential oftentimes. But in my particular case, I like to go ahead and put the next day, right? So we're going to go ahead and put the next day for acceptance. And remember that acceptance doesn't mean they have to answer you by that time. It just means that after this date, you are no longer bound by this contract. Your buyer doesn't have to move forward if they sign this contract. So if they sign it one day after this on the 7th, and your buyer had decided already that he was going to go with another property, then you could just say, hey, man, that contract's null and void. We're done. Okay. Don't fill in anything in here. You already see, if you read this is talking about what is the effective date of the contract. The effective date in general is when the last one of the seller or buyer has signed. Same thing with residential. Whoever the last person is to sign is when the date starts, right? Here it's giving you the option of saying it's going to be effective on this date. I rather just leave that blank and use effective date. Okay. Closing date. Another question you're going to get a lot of times. How long does it take to close a commercial property? Well, if you listen to Gil Ramos's famous line, well, it depends, right? It all depends on the property. It depends on the situation. It depends on the type of property. So for instance, if you are buying a property that used to be an automotive or a dealership or something where there's definitely going to be some potential environmental issues, like they were dumping oil into the ground or whatever. And even restaurants do. They have grease traps and tanks that are filled with grease and things that can seep into the ground, right? So you're going to have to do some stuff during the due diligence period that might take a while, such as environmental studies and things like that. We'll talk about that in a second, okay? So there's a lot of different things that have to go on. For instance, let's say you're buying a property that you're going to be developing on. Maybe it's a piece of land, or maybe it's a property that you're going to knock down and are going to be building an apartment complex or something there. Well, you're going to want to know, unless it's already a project that's been approved. In other words, that the seller of the property has gone to the city, has submitted plans to the city, and the city has said, yes, we approve you guys to build, a 300 unit apartment complex on this thing. Well, first of all, if you ever get to that stage, if a seller ever gets there, or even if you become a commercial investor and you buy a piece of land and you get all that process done where the city has approved the project, they call that entitling the project, right? The project's already been entitled. It will actually massively increase the value of your property. Why? Because the person buying it doesn't have to go through that process, and they know for a fact that can build the thing that they want to build. If you're just selling a piece of land and the land is still agriculture and you want it to get zoned for building, a big apartment complex, well, it's not currently zoned for that, which means that when you're selling that land and you haven't done all the legwork, you're going to get less for that piece of land because whoever buys it has to go through a process. So going back to what the closing date is, it'll all depend how much time you need for due diligence, right? Because if I need to go through a process with the city, heck, I might be closing this, 6 months down the road. I might be closing it 5 months down the road. It might be a long closing. Okay. But if it's a standard deal, okay, I think that you could get this done as quickly. If it's a cash deal, you can get this done as quickly as you really want to, right? If it's a cash deal, depending on how fast your client moves. If there's financing involved, I can tell you, I'm going through the SBA loan process right now. You're probably not going to get anything closed in under 60 days if you're getting financing from a bank. And I wouldn't even try it. I would give yourself at least 60 days to close. So let's just do a 60-day one here. But once again, if you have cash, you can make magic happen. If you have cash and your buyer knows they want the property, they don't have to do a long inspection period or due diligence period, and they just want to get moving, you can set this faster. For right now, I'm just going to put a 60-day close. Okay. So we're February 5th. Boom, boom. Let's do April. Okay. So we're going to close this thing in 2 months. Okay. Perfect. Let's keep it moving. Okay, it will ask you here in line 43 what the location is. We are in Orange County, okay? And then here's the part where we're going to talk about financing. So is the buyer getting financing? If they are, you want to fill out some of this section. Very similar to the residential contract. I don't get too specific about the financing because it's just another way for you to get out of it, out of the contract, right? If you don't get the exact financing you asked for. So in this particular case, let's say they were putting like 20% down. So I might put financing not to exceed 80%. And that's about as specific as I'll get in here. Because if I start saying, hey, with a fixed interest rate not to exceed X amount, and I start getting very specific, it just gives me a reason to back out of this contract, and the seller's not going to like the way it looks. So basically, I would leave most of this blank. And maybe if you just want to say prevailing rates and terms, right? So whatever is, the banks are offering is what you'll do for financing, right? Okay. And just know that we're filling out this section and we're going to give ourselves a financing protection period, just like we would for the residential, right? We need a financing contingency. So here it is. It's kind of tucked in. This is why the commercial contract sometimes you might think is more complicated, but it just has different sections that say essentially the same thing. So if we're getting financing, we're going to want to fill this section out. Well, look here, line 53 is where it gives you the time for loan approval. So if you look at this, it actually defaults to 45 days, giving you 45 days to really finalize your loan approval. Okay. So that's pretty typical. As far as financing is concerned, obviously it's a negotiation point between you and a seller. How hot is the deal? Blah, blah, blah. But I like 45 days. So stick with 45 when you make your initial offer. And if it's something that the seller says, no, we want to lower that, or if your buyer's like, hey, I need more time because of such and such, and you can adjust it. But let's go ahead and keep it 45 days. But remember, if you leave it blank, it'll default to 45 anyway. So here I didn't fill anything in here, but basically it says this. Look, if within that 45 days something happens, you can cancel the contract. As soon as you get your denial, you have 3 days to send in written notice that you want to cancel the contract. You're going to get your deposit back, right? If something goes wrong in 45 days with your financing, okay? So we'll keep moving down here, and then we'll come back to this section because if we do cash, I'll show you what to do in this section that's a little bit different, okay? So the title. So they're asking what kind of title are you going to take? I would click statutory warranty deed. There's an option to do special warranty deed. If they're a stickler about this, I'm not sure that I would be too concerned by clicking special warranty deed. The difference is this: statutory warranty deed says that the seller is basically giving you clear title. And if anything wasn't cleared, if something comes up in the future, no matter whether it was during the time that the seller owned the property or not, anytime in the history of this property, if some other lien pops up, in other words, somebody had put a lien on that property that nobody knew about, popped up, then the seller is still liable to make sure that they get you that clear title. They might have to pay that lien off or whatever the case may be. Okay. So that's the one we usually want. That's the one that we use in residential. Okay. Special warranty deed says, hey, the seller's guaranteeing you have clear title, but only for the time that the seller owned the property. Okay. Not for the time that anybody else owned it. Right. But most of these properties all have title insurance and things like that. If for some reason the listing agent says, hey, we want to do a special warranty deed, I wouldn't be that scared about it. But I always like to protect my buyer more. So I click statutory warranty deed. Okay. Let's see. List any other amounts to be subject to. Okay, so this is an important line 79. So on line 79, it says, what is the buyer's intended use of the property? So this is the place to kind of protect your buyer and let them know, hey, I'm looking to use this property for X reason, right? So if you're buying an office building, you're going to put office, right? If you're buying a store where you're going to sell products, it might say, retail space, if you're buying an apartment complex, you might put multifamily here. Okay. So just putting the use of the property that you're buying, or it could be an industrial property. In this particular case, it's industrial. So assuming that I was buying our property for industrial uses, that's what I would want to do. So here we are here. So evidence of title, who pays the title premium. In this particular case, we're going to keep it on the seller side. So seller's going to be responsible for delivering you title. And I like to put within 15 days. Okay. Or 15 days before closing. Okay. So I like to put 15 days here. Okay. And then you have to click a box. So we're looking to get a title insurance policy. Okay. That gives you another option here about an abstract of title. Don't do that one. Do title insurance just like we would for a residential property. Okay. So it's going to be at the seller's expense, and they're going to pull title, and they're going to get that title to us within 15 days of us executing this contract. Okay. And we want a title insurance commitment. Okay, so we're going to move on from here. Title will be deemed acceptable by buyer if buyer fails to deliver proper notice of defects or buyer delivers proper written notice and seller cures a defect within 15 days. So this is what this means. So if something comes up on title, obviously, if we want the deal to keep going, we're going to give the seller a chance to cure the defect, right? So if, let's say they pull up title and they find out, oh, you forgot to pay this contractor for doing the roof, right? And there's a lien on this, right? And you come back to the seller and say, hey, I don't have clear title. I'm giving you 15 days for you to fix that problem. Okay. So that's why I put 15 in there. Okay. And they call that the curative period. Okay. That's the time that the seller has to cure the defect on the title. Okay. I like to put 15 there. Okay. Here talks about a survey, right? There's going to be a survey that has to be ordered the property, right? So seller will, we're going to talk about the survey down here, but this is actually something that's slightly different. So seller will within blank days of effective date, deliver to buyer copies of surveys, plans, specs, and all that stuff. Okay. So if the seller has these documents, it doesn't mean that they have them, but if they do, you're going to click here and tell them, I usually give them about a week, right? 7 days. So within 7 days of signing this contract, I want any documents you have, you can provide me for this property, not just the surveys, but any specs, any engineering documents. You might even put environmentals or any other pertinent documents, right? So anything they have, you're asking for it. Hey, if you already done an environmental, show it to me. Like, give me everything you got so I can feel good about this property. I know what I'm getting into. But once again, it's not required of the seller. It's only if they have the stuff, right? So I like to put that in there for them, okay? And then this part here talks about who's going to pay for the survey. So usually it's the buyer. So buyer will, at buyer's expense and within the time period allowed, deliver and examine title evidence, obtain a certified survey of the property, okay? So the buyer will be paying for that, okay? Now check this out. If the survey reveals encroachments on the property or that the improvements encroach on the land of another, buyer will accept the property with existing encroachments, or such encroachments will constitute a title defect. I'm going to click title defect because if we get a survey and we find out, hey man, you built a building that's encroaching on the next property, like you build a building across property lines, well, that's a big problem, right? They might make you tear down that building. So we're going to say, hey, look, if that happens, that's a title defect and we got to figure that out. Okay. So we click that there. Okay. So this here is, I won't read the whole paragraph to you, but the paragraph basically says, hey, look, just like in residential, you're going to deliver this property to me in the same condition as when I saw it. Okay. Minus any normal wear and tear. But if I go to that property and I'm about to close on it and I do a walkthrough and I find that something major is different, then in this particular section here, and if you leave it blank, it defaults to 1.5%, you can ask the seller to get it back to the condition that it's supposed to be. And here it caps it at 1.5% of the purchase price. So in other words, the seller, if it's beyond the 1.5%, the seller might say, hey, look, I'm not gonna spend more than X amount of money to fix this property back up. And then you will have a decision to make, right? Because if the property's not in the condition that you want it to, then you'll be able to get out of this contract, right? I'm not going to buy a building and then find out 2 days before that you knocked down one of the buildings and, I can't buy that building, the property anymore, right? Okay. So moving on. In this particular case, you have two options down here. Now we're going to talk about the due diligence period, right? So if any case that your buyer says, look, I don't need to do an inspection, I know this property, I'm going to buy it, then you could click this and buy it as is. But you got to understand, you are waiving your right to inspect, right? It's just like writing a residential contract with 0 inspection period days. Okay. So it's a risky maneuver. But it can happen sometimes. Like I said, if a buyer wants to get aggressive on a deal, if this is the way they win it, then they can do that. Okay. But most of the time, people aren't going to do that. They're going to click this. You're going to have a due diligence period. So how many days of due diligence, meaning inspection, will we have? And by the way, due diligence is used for all sorts of things. You're just buying yourself time to get the things you get done. I've already mentioned some of those things. One is obviously, yes, you want to do a commercial property inspection. Number 2 is you're probably, and especially if you do financing through a bank, if you are financing, they're going to require to do environmental studies, right? They're going to get people out there, put holes into the ground, make sure that it's not contaminated. Because guess what? If there's oil tanks in the ground, this happened to me. I was selling a restaurant property right? And found out in the process that that restaurant used to be a gas station back in the 70s and before. So there was actually gas tanks that were still buried under there or had been buried under there. And we had, the buyer had to do these environmental studies because guess what? If they buy it from me, right? Because commercial is a little different. Commercial is buyer beware. Like they have to do this. Like if I sell them this property and then they find out after the fact that it's contaminated, that ain't the seller's fault anymore, right? The buyer now has that problem, right? So buyers will want to do this kind of stuff. So if you're getting financing, you're going to have to do environmentals. You might want to use this time to do the plans with the city. Once again, if I'm buying a piece of land or a property that's not currently zoned for the thing I'm trying to do, I might buy myself a lot of time to go to the city, get my plans and engineering plans done, my renderings done, and bring a whole plan to the city. Might have to have multiple sitting meetings. That could take months. Okay. So how long is the period? Once again, it depends, right? If you need a lot of time for something, if there's a lot of things that have to be done, then you're going to want more time. In essence, 30 days should be enough time to get most of your studies and everything done. So I'm just going to put 30 days on this one. But once again, if I was doing a development project where I was doing something bigger and I had to go to the city, I might get myself 3 months. I might get 90 days. I've had people ask me for a 9-month due diligence period. I didn't give it to them, but what were they trying to do? I'll tell you what they were trying to do. They were trying to buy my restaurant property and they wanted to be an investor. So they were going to use that time to find somebody to lease that property within my due diligence period. Well, I'm not giving you 9 months to go find yourself a tenant, right? But some sellers will, especially if they want to sell the property, right? So I'm just kind of giving you all scenarios, but I'm going to put 30-day due diligence period, okay? And you can read this entire paragraph, but basically this is the way, hey, look, if within 30 days you don't like this property for any reason, boom, you send in your cancellation, you get that $50,000 deposit back, okay? Great. So next, so let's talk about operation of property, okay? So this basically says, hey, look, while we're in contract, like I don't want anything to change. Like if I'm buying this property to put my business in there, I can't have you renting the property during the time, right? So if any changes such as renting vacant space that materially affect the property or buyer's intended use of the property will be permitted either only with buyer's consent or without buyer's consent. You're going to want to click only with buyer's consent because if I'm going in there, I don't want them to rent it to somebody else. And then I'm buying this building. I'm like, where am I going to put my business in? Right. So they have to come to you and say, hey, I'm looking to lease this space. Are you okay with me leasing part of the property to this person? And you might actually want that. It's like, oh, great. That'll help me and save me some money. Right. So that's important there. So moving on, a lot of legalese. I suggest you read this whole contract, by the way. I want you guys to know this contract. I'm just giving you the main points of this contract so you know how to do it. Okay. Cure period 5 left, if left blank. So if there's any kind of default, if somebody's kind of breached the contract or anything, it defaults to 5 days. You still have 5 days to cure this problem, right? So if something went wrong, if the contract is breached or something, this just gives them 5 days. So I don't put anything in here. It defaults to 5 days. We're going to keep it moving. Okay. And here I'm going to go back to something real quick because I wanted to mention this with the financing. So remember we talked about financing before. If I'm doing as is, right, and this is a cash deal, right, I'm going to click as is, right? This is a cash. Actually, take that back. You're going to want to do diligence period anyway. But if you do a cash deal, okay, in that section where you have here the financing terms, sometimes I actually cross this whole thing out. I mark it up and cross it out. Or right here, I would just put, buyer is paying cash for the property, no financing. Can't spell. Sorry, guys. Involved. Okay. So if you're doing cash, okay, that's what I would put here. And obviously I wouldn't have anything in here or anything like that. Okay. But sometimes what I do is I'll actually cross this out. I'll still write this and I'll cross this out just to let them know this is a cash deal, no financing. Okay. So heading down here where we were before, and if it's a cash deal, like I said, you still do a due diligence period, right? Most of the time, unless they're really aggressive and they want to go as is. Okay, coming back down here. Okay, so cure period. Good. Okay, assignability. So here's an assignability section, very similar to the assignability section on a residential contract, okay? But it's a little bit different. So many times in commercial, people buy a property with a company, right? With an LLC that they formed specifically for this property. Why do they do that? They do that as a protection method, right? They want that property to have its own LLC for protection. So if anything happens with that property, that's protected by the LLC, and that LLC is specifically just for that property, right? Because if you put a bunch of businesses and different things under one LLC, like if I buy this property with this LLC and it's the same LLC I use to make money from my business, and somebody comes after me for something I did with my business or with this property, they can take everything, right? They can go after my business, they can go after my property. So a lot of times, buyers will create just an LLC just to buy this property, and only this property will be held in that LLC. So if you read the assignability section, this contract may be assigned to a related entity, and otherwise, either you have two options: is not assignable or is assignable. Okay. So in this particular case, just like residential, I'd rather it be not assignable. It's actually giving you written in here the ability to assign this to a related entity. And it's just what I explained to you. So let's say me, I put Robert Davidowitz as the buyer of this contract. Let's say we did that because I didn't actually form an LLC yet, right? I just saw this property. I'm going to form an LLC for this property, but I haven't formed it yet. What this sentence allows me to do is, hey, in the middle of this transaction, I can form 123 Main Street LLC, and I can transfer the contract to that LLC so that on title it'll be the LLC. But that's what they call a related entity. I'm the owner of that LLC. That's different. This is what it's asking you here in these boxes, is saying, wait, can you assign it just to anybody else? And the answer here is no. I don't want, we don't want to tell them that we're going to assign it to anybody else. So I click is not assignable. Okay. Moving on. Okay. My favorite section. So, there's actually a section in here that talks about the commission. So unlike residential, where we do not talk about commissions in the contract, here it actually talks about it, and that's what I love that about the contract. So there's no no confusion as to what we're getting paid. So here, let's just say EXP Realty. Let's say the other agent, and I'll put another agent that I know there or whatever. I'll put test, right? Okay, so this is the seller's broker. You could just put their company, their name, and most of the time I always put transaction broker in there, because that's what we are. But whether it is or it isn't, we're gonna click. I just put transaction broker and then listing agreement. Okay. So I'm assuming that they have a listing agreement with the seller, and that's how I'm gonna get paid. Okay, but that's their section. Here's your section. So I'm going to put EXP Realty LLC, my name. You can put the address of the office there to give all the information and everything there. But here's the part that I want you guys to focus on. So you're going to be working as a transaction broker. You're going to click that for yourself, and it's going to ask you who will be compensated by, and we're going to say the seller. The seller is going to compensate us. You could say seller or seller's broker. That's fine. If that's what you do. So either a seller's broker or seller. Either way, it's coming from the seller side is the important part. Okay. And then it'll say pursuant to an MLS offer of compensation. Okay. Meaning, was this on the MLS? If it was, perfect. Then the commission's right there listed on the MLS. But what did I tell you? A lot of commercial agents aren't on the MLS. So in that particular case, I would say, hey, if it's not on the MLS, I'll just say other. And it will say seller will pay buyer's broker 3% of purchase price as commission. Right? So Seller will pay buyer's broker 3% of purchase price as commission. I try to be as specific as possible, right? So this is where you put your commission and it gets solidified in the contract. So I like this place. So once again, you're the buyer's broker, eXp Realty, Bobby Davidowitz, put all the information in here. I'm a transaction broker who's going to pay me, either the seller or seller's broker. I just put seller, and then over here, because I'm assuming this wasn't on the MLS, I'm going to put other, and I'm going to say seller will pay buyer's broker purchase 3% of purchase price as commission. Okay. Now we're all solid there. If that gets signed, you know you're getting paid your commission. I love that. Okay. And then you have your additional terms where, once again, if there's anything that you're asking for, whether it be closing costs or anything else specific, this is where you would add it. Okay. And you have some addendums and things here that that you might use. But on a traditional purchase, I've sold restaurants, I've sold offices, I've sold land, and I've sold apartment complexes, and I've used this contract for all of them, right? So this is a very universal type of contract, and that's pretty much it. And obviously, you're going to want to get everything initialed and signed by everyone. But that is the commercial contract, guys. You're still you want to run this past a mentor or somebody else when you write it out, right? But this gives you the basics of how to write this contract. And then on another note, please know that eXp Realty now has a specific commercial division. Okay. So if you're out there and you're meeting commercial agents, make sure that you know what the eXp commercial division offers, because we actually have an awesome deal for agent attraction for bringing in commercial agents. How do you find out about that? Go to expcommercial.com. You can learn more there, but honestly, the best way to know what's going on with the commercial division is to use Workplace. Workplace is kind of our Facebook for the company. It's how I can get in direct contact with all the executives at the company, and go and join the group eXp Commercial, and they have all that information there. I hope this helps, guys, and good luck. Talk to you soon.